I must have looked something like this when I first watched the trailer for Portal 1 at a friend's house. I was blown away by the idea of the game, the whole Portals thing. To me, at the time, it seemed like the pinnacle of gaming tech. I eagerly awaited the game and I was not disappointed. Portal 1 and 2 remain two of my favorite games ever in pretty much every regard. But Valve has a sizable problem when it comes to Portal 3: innovation. With every game they release, at least in the Half-Life universe, which is what I can talk quite confidently about, they have implemented some kind of innovation. Half-Life 1 was one of maybe even the first shooter to implement in-game seamless storytelling that influenced basically the whole world of gaming. Half-Life 2 extended on that premise and added a never-seen-before physics system. Half-Life Alyx ventured far into VR with great success in my opinion, and Portal 1 not only gifted us a fresh and unique gameplay element in the form of user-placed portals, but also a crazy dystopian story set in an underground science lab, weaving a web back to Half-Life 1. Portal 2 introduced the gels, making us run faster, jump higher, and be even more creative with the portals, all while extending the story with a star-studded voice cast. And what now? Now, Valve needs to innovate again. What is Portal 3 going to do? VR is probably off the table, that would be a puke fest if I ever saw one, except for a very unlikely integration of a Neuralink type device, which is basically the only hardware-based innovation besides VR I can imagine. There's really nothing on the market of inputs that would be a Valve-level innovation of the formula. So the novelty has to come from the gameplay side, or maybe the storytelling. As I said, Portal 2 added the gels, which were a fun and, most importantly, sensible in-universe addition to Portal's gameplay. We all wondered what it would be like to be able to place portals basically on every solid surface we wanted and to run faster into and jump further out of portals, so Valve gave us just that. But what now? Well, let me introduce you to the Entropy Centre. Developed by Stubby Games and published by PlayStack in 2022, it's a twist on the setting and idea of the Portal games inspired by, well, Portal and the movie Tenet. Both Tenet and the Entropy Centre revolve around the concept of entropy, which all of you are very welcome to research for yourself, because I did not listen to my physics teacher enough to explain it well, or rather at all. But for the sake of understanding the game, the Entropy Centre treats it like this. You have a gun that can reverse the state an object is in to a former version of that state. Meaning that you can drop a glass standing on your desk, whoopsie, get your entropy device and rewind the glass back up onto the table. Physically speaking, there's nothing happening on the molecular level to the glass that is not perfectly normal, molecules merging and fusing, forming crystals, upward movements, etc. Yet this never happens in real life, which is why we tend to see entropy as something that is increasing. This is not time travel per se, even though it looks like it, because we are not moving everything back in time. We are reversing the flow of entropy for one object, not all of them. Now, somehow the eggheads at the Entropy Centre have managed to not only build this device that can rewind objects, but also made it able to collect so-called entropy energy that is generated by the puzzle operative solving all the puzzle chambers. For the sake of easiness, just accept that solving these puzzles produces energy, whose use we will talk about later. Now, why am I telling you all this? It's because I think that the Entropy Centre is actually a very good example of the things a possible Portal 3 needs, and also a good case study of what makes Valve such a great developer by having a few shortcomings that make Valve's touch quite visible. But before I go on, let me say this. From what I have gathered, Stubby Games' lead developer Daniel Stubbington is also Stubby Games' only developer, and the Entropy Centre being a solo dev game is absolutely insane. Now, I am quite sure that Mr. Stubbington has had quite a lot of help during the development of this game, but it is incredibly impressive what this man has produced here, people. So take the criticisms I have about TEC with a grain of salt, as given the circumstances of its development, this game is insanely well done at this scope. Okay, so where was I going with... okay. The Entropy Centre is basically the idea I would have expected to be implemented into Portal 3. Think about it, isn't time-bending, gravity-defying puzzle solving using a strange but fundamental principle of physics exactly up Valve's alley? Isn't this one of those high-concept ideas they like to implement? Can you not see it? Rewinding time— yes, I know I said it's not time travel, but it's easier this way, sue me. In test chambers, relocating portals through the entropy device, which could be added to the portal gun? Especially with how Half-Life Alyx ended, spoiler incoming in 3, 2, 1, rewinding time and reversing what has happened is now canon in the Half-Life and Portal universe. And the Entropy Centre also quite successfully shows that this concept works very well in Portal's setting, as it itself is set in a hermetically sealed lab in a strange place overrun by rogue AI and giving you a female AI companion full of quips and jokes, though this time much more friendly towards you. At no point in time while playing this game have I thought that it might be a rip-off of Portal, a cheap copy meant to attract its fans. I can't deny that the first time I looked at it, I thought to myself, hey, that does look a lot like Portal. Man, I miss Portal. Maybe this will scratch an itch? But it is much more than that. It is an homage, a reimagining of the universe with plenty of parallels and borrowed inspirations, but usually executed with a bit of spice and new ideas, or at the very least, the effort of creating something new. However, of course, not everything is fine and dandy. Getting back to the basic concept of the entropy device and the test chambers, there are a few logic holes that either are exactly that, logic holes, or just concepts not explained well enough to old Max Smallbrain talking to you right now. Now, to make the puzzle and tests actually puzzling and testing, the game must narrow our options of doing these basic tasks down to a solvable but hidden baseline. In Portal, this is done by making only certain walls work with the portal gun. There can't be too little, because then it's obvious what to do. There can't be too many, because that would open up too many ways of solving the test chamber. And it is even explained in universe why these white walls are portalable, namely through moondust paint, which is also why they are limited in number and why Cave Johnson got sick. In TEC, however, there is no explanation given as to why a thing is entropyable. I need to look up more adjectives. At least not that I can remember. There are just some parts of a map that glow orange when you aim at, and now you can rewind it. At first I thought that it only works for things the entropy device has moved itself in the first place, like picking up a cube, putting it somewhere else, and then rewinding it, but that was thrown out of the window quite soon when things just started to fall down and the game wanted me to rewind them. So, okay, I thought, maybe the destructional movement has to have happened not too long ago. No, I can move debris that has been there for ages if necessary. Hey, Zepa from the editing here. I might be wrong about this, because I'm struggling to find a clip where the stuff that I'm rewinding hasn't broken in the moments before I arrived there, or even in the moment when I was there. That might actually be the thing. You can rewind stuff that broke just moments ago. I get that the game cannot allow me to rewind everything, that would be idiotic in a puzzle setting. I also get that technically there isn't a stop to the rewind. If we think back to the glass on your desk example, we should then be able to further rewind it back into the cupboard, the store, the factory? Where would this stop? So yeah, it makes sense that there is a stop, but tell me why. Maybe tell me how. Maybe I have missed the explanation or have not come across it yet, as I'm only about 60% done at this point, and maybe never will, but more on that later. So maybe the explanation comes later, but here, let me give you an easy example of what I mean. The test chambers get rewound every time a puzzle operative has finished them and the entropy energy has been collected. So now, just tell me some stuff about how rewinding the chambers with the chamber rewind machines creates an entropy baseline that blah 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 null state blah 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 energy flow. You get the idea. That is one of those tiny nuggets of polish that Valve would have put in there, even if it was just an info panel. And now, what would we need all this entropy energy for? Well, the Entropy Centre has the teeny tiny task of rewinding Earth when a cataclysmic event happens. For that, they have an enormous version of the entropy device that is fed with the entropy energy harvested by the smaller entropy devices. However, there seems to be a problem with the current rewinding, as we learn quite early in the story. Everyone from the center is gone, maybe they left willingly, maybe they were disappeared, we don't know. And Arya, our protagonist, now follows a maze of 15 areas containing plenty of puzzle chambers each to not only get enough entropy energy, but also to figure out what the hell went wrong here. I will not spoil much more about the game, as I really think you should play it yourself. The story is kinda dystopian, a bit dark, much like in Portal 2. You can see how the whole center is falling apart and has fallen apart. The environments are very pretty and generally engaging, if repetitive, but that is kind of a given in a lab setting. Our characters, however, are a stark contrast to the bleak outlook of the game, with Arya and Astra being quippy and mostly light-hearted, even though Arya's human nature makes her obviously more cautious and worried than Astra's motivational programming. Even though I agree with plenty of people who have complained that being quippy isn't a character, I have to say that I generally don't dislike the two main characters' interactions. It does lighten the mood quite a bit, and this story is not a character study but a simple hero tries to save the day narrative.
Wow, you did that puzzle so quickly, you could enter the Entropy Centre speedrun to sight.
I can tell when you're lying, Astra. But thanks for the encouragement.
Praise animation has been reduced by 40%.
But, ooh, here it comes. The story is just too drawn out. I haven't finished the game yet, and I won't. I've just watched the ending in a walkthrough on YouTube. It did absolutely catch me in the beginning, and I was and am very interested in how the story ends and what happened to the center, but man, it is puzzle chamber after puzzle chamber, and they are just not fun anymore. The structure is too obvious. You have chapters or areas containing several unique chambers, and once you finish a chapter, you step into an elevator, step out of the elevator, there may be a cutscene or an enemy event, and there we go, new puzzle element. This is the basic structure of the whole game. Don't get me wrong, the puzzles are mostly well designed, but there are just too many. It feels like Stubbington was so proud, rightfully so, of his game that he said to himself, oh, let's add another chamber here and do one more there and one more here and this and that, and kind of lost sight of the line which divides a game full of content from a game crammed with content. It's weird, but I would have liked the game to be shorter. For example, there are these weird smoky grey black thingies that appear in front of us early in the game, and then you don't see them again for hours. Arya basically sees ghosts, says, ooh, we are not alone, and then the game seems to forget about it for ages. So many times I thought to myself, this is it, this chamber, this door, this cutscene looks like they are coming back, like more is revealed, and then nothing happens. I have now seen them appear again, and I did not think, finally I get to know more about this. I thought, well, now it's too late, I don't care. And this was the moment I thought to myself, I'm done. And I know he's a solo dev, and I know I am complaining on a very high level, which is why I say that you should play the game yourself, because it is really good. But it just made me think of how Portal and Portal 2 advanced their stories, implemented new gameplay features around story beats, you know? The gels, for example, are introduced when you fall into the past with old aperture and stuff, so not only is the game engaging me with new mechanics, but also coats them in an interesting part of the story. But just giving me another thing to worry about, a laser, a bridge, a reverser, a folding box or whatever, does not reinvent the gameplay enough to keep me engaged, sadly. Honestly, sadly. It always goes, where do I need to be last, what happens before that, before that, before that, before that, rewinds. Now, if you're not as attention crippled as I am and can actually work your way through a huge number of puzzles without getting bored, this game is perfect for you. If I had to describe it to an unknowing bystander, I would do it like this. Playing the Entropy Centre is like doing Sudoku. It's fun, it passes the time, and the quality of it does not degrade. It is a Sudoku, it stays a Sudoku, but after a while I just don't want to do a Sudoku anymore, but I do want to know the story told with them. And then I get bored. Sadly. With Valve's history of hiring the people whose mods or gameplay ideas they base their games on, I would love love to see Daniel Stubbington being invited to work with Valve on a game like Portal 3. He has a very good eye for what makes Portal Portal, for what makes puzzles work, and without a doubt, he managed to create a game that could easily be Portal 3 without it feeling like a cheap knockoff. Combined, the two studios would create an incredible, mind-bending experience of a game. However their story goes, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for watching.